Hey, everybody, welcome to the Rosalie Elliott Show. We're all about psychology, world music, so much more. And today I want to bring you something different. We're not checking out music per se, but I want to talk about the psychology and the power that social media, particularly YouTube, podcasts, and YouTubers, etc., have in our world, including when it comes to politics. And this is not a video intended for political polarization on either side. I just want to talk about how fascinating it is to see people, regular people like you and I, rise to prominence, being world renowned, and even being able to interview legendary people, people that are controversial, people that have a lot of power. An example of that is Theo Von. I just recently came across some of his stuff, just a couple of clips here and there, heard about him, intrigued by his personality because it was so brutally honest, uncomfortably honest. Okay, so I know nothing. I know basically nothing except that this guy is like a stand up comedian, I suppose, and then started doing a podcast, and now he's just blowing up. And I think, and this is why I wanted to bring this special to you, that there is something very powerful about that because we see people that are so down to earth, like Theo, who are relatable because of the struggles, because of the skeletons in their closet, the demons that they've battled. And it shows the rest of us. I think there's this element of relatability because it shows the rest of us that anyone, no matter where you come from, no matter what you've been through, can make an impact. And I think that inspires people because of our own desire for significance. We want to have value. We base our identity on the things we accomplish. And YouTube and the internet in general has made that possible for people from the simplicity of their kitchen, as Theo says he started his podcast from, being able to record, to bring content, hopefully something of value, and get people to watch. And millions will follow, and millions will start listening and supporting, subscribing. And it is beyond just someone that is fun or entertaining, but it's even so much now to the point that you can literally impact millions of people to feel a certain way about a topic. Having people like Theo Von interview presidential candidates and people from all walks of life in various power positions in the various industries, that is how you can get people. Again, why? Because he is a person like you and me. He comes across authentic. He shares his struggles. He's not afraid to be vulnerable. He is funny. Humor attracts people. Humor is attractive. Humor makes us feel comfortable when we can laugh with someone. It makes us feel more safe. It opens up the space for human connection. Then he asks sincere questions, presents his intelligence, shows us that he is not just asking random questions for clickbait. He actually cares. There's authenticity. People long for what's real. And then he is getting actual answers. And I could see, especially people that are Trump fans or people that are on the fence, really looking at Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, from a very different lens, just because of this human interaction. And that's why I'm fascinated psychologically by how powerful these approaches are and how smart, from a political strategic standpoint, how smart it would be to choose to sit down with Theo. Obviously, that was unintentional.
Yeah, what else, dude? We went to interview Donald Trump. And that was crazy, bro. I'm like, yeah, I couldn't even believe that we got to do it, you know? And I'd had a long week. It was a long week. Everybody has a long week, blah, blah, blah.
See, things like this. He's like, I had a long week, being honest about his own fatigue, but then also being humble enough to be like, yeah, whatever. We all know what that's like. He's making us feel like, I'm one of you. We're all tired. So what?
But I'd had a long week, and then we go up there. And there's like a lot of Secret Service getting into, it was at Bedminster Golf Course. So there's a lot of Secret Service getting in there. So you got to stop here, and this guy kind of touches your pockets or whatever. And this guy, you know, somebody's reading your ribs or whatever. They got a mystic out there reading your ribs. They got people patting you down, people patting you up. One dude's patting you up. I'm like, God, this guy's, obviously doesn't have a wife.
See what I mean?
And so, yeah, you stop. There's a couple locations you got to stop and get frisked and patted and wanded and wizarded. And, yeah, they just ask you craziest questions, like they'll be like, what's your middle name, and then they'll be like, does your mother fuck a lot? And you're like, what? I don't, but they're trying to, see where you're at and see if you know anybody from Russia or whatever. And then
This guy is wild.
And so I get there, and I had like 40 minutes from when I got there to when it was time to do the interview. So only had a limited amount of time, and I had to, I had my clothes with me. I had my suit coat, and I had 2 shirts. I had one pair of boots, one pair of regular shoes, and bathroom kit, hairspray, just to look the best that you could. And I was super nervous to get in the room, and I'm just kind of making sure, the producers, Zach and Nick, are there. My tour manager, Bizzle, is there. My right hand.
See, look, even at this picture, okay, he's telling us the pieces of clothing he brought with him. Completely relatable. We know what it's like to pack a suitcase. He is one of us, and it is hilarious. But the way that he's doing it is so blunt and brutally honest. And there's something about that will almost make you uncomfortable. Not here, but this other clip that I had watched, were part of an interview. It was so brutally intense. It was almost uncomfortable to listen to. But then at the same time, there's something freeing about having someone not be afraid to ask crazy questions, to talk about crazy things. I think it makes people feel safe. Even though it makes you uncomfortable, you know where you're at with that person. To a degree. For others, maybe they're afraid that the person will drop any random verbal bomb any second. But there's something freeing about seeing someone so down to earth. And I think that's one of the things about his appeal to the world. But even here, right, his facial expression, completely just, of course, I'm possibly nervous. Of course, I'm amazed that he got this opportunity. But he's real.
My right-hand man, and so we were, just getting everything like organized and making sure it all looks, just like we normally do, making sure everything is legitimate. And then they had like the flags in the background. I'm like, holy shit, bro, this is like the damn Pledge of Allegiance came to life, bro. It was, it just felt super real at that moment. And there's like there was a Secret Service guy kind of over just like in one corner of the room. I believe it was just a guy, and he was kind of near the restroom, and so I was like kind of afraid to go piss or whatever because I didn't want, I don't know if they're like listening to you piss or whatever. I don't know what everything that they do or whatever. If he's like thinks I'm like using pee or piss or whatever to do like Morse code into the water or something. I don't know all their training or whatever. So I'm like super scared.
I would have never thought of that. I could see being nervous going to the bathroom when there's Secret Service right there. My concern would be, do they think that I'm about to, find something in my pockets that they overlooked or go do something secret in the bathroom? But Morse code with piss, this guy's hilarious. I'm going to just listen to a few more minutes of this for this video, because I want to go through a couple of parts of the interview with Donald Trump with you. But it's just neat to even see his reflection, how his mind works.
In there, and I ended up just peeing in. They had a cup, like a red Solo cup that I brought in there with me. I peed in it and then just poured it into the toilet, dude, like along the side of the toilet wall so it would be real quiet. I think I was getting super paranoid. And then, so anyway, it starts to get like, we talk with his advisors. People start to kind of come in just to make sure everything's cool. And this room has all been like searched or whatever, and drug dog, bomb dog, sword. I think they had a sword dog come in.
The most random details. Okay, see, so I'm gonna stop at that point. Or maybe actually, it's so interesting to listen to him. I might just keep listening in a minute. But I want to go over real quick to where he is speaking to Donald Trump, because again, to me, that was mind blowing. Okay, so he has over 3 million subscribers. When you look at his picture on YouTube, his profile picture is so random. Just dude with sunglasses taking a picture of himself with a phone. That in itself, to me, psychologically, is so relatable to millions and millions of people, because that's what most people do. So many people have taken a selfie in a picture. Maybe this was just strategic to have a picture like this. Maybe his marketing team was like, yes, let's just pick the most random, simplest picture of you, taking a picture of yourself, the way that people will find on social media. Simple, catchy branding. It pulls you in. Then his thumbnails are super cool too, right? You have that brand, you have the similar font, similar style to most of these thumbnails. So there's that consistency in the brand, which is helpful. You know, the type of font, you have his laughter, his facial expressions, his guests laughing and cracking up, smiles, showing teeth, all those things pull people in. Ooh, what is this? Who's laughing? How is he making them laugh? Right? And then you start growing familiar with the person and you don't even have to see all the details of the thumbnail. All you see is Theo Von's face and some guest and click, there we go. You want to know what is happening. So, right, marketing pulls you in for various reasons, but it's done well on his page. He's blowing up in real time. And that's why it was so brilliant. Because if you look at his videos, obviously many videos that are in the millions and the millions and millions, to put it in Trump's words. But I say this because when it comes to marketing and branding, there's so much psychology behind it. The way colors impact us, fonts, consistency, knowing what to expect, being intrigued, right? Things like smile, teeth, attraction. All these things make a difference as to how people are going to respond, if they're going to click or not. What need am I meeting, right? For some people, it's authenticity and emotion. For others, it's give me education. For others, it's just make me laugh. He already has a head start in the sense that he is funny. He's a comedian. He's hilarious. He has the element of attraction, of being appealing to a viewer, right? He's not sitting there going, "Meh," you know, it just, there's, oh gosh, that's going to probably turn into a meme. But he has this appeal that pulls people in. But then it's his style of communicating. And so Theo Von is just taking off. Comedian, podcaster, huge guests on his podcast, right? That people are naturally going to be interested in. What does this person or that person have to say? But then what I find so fascinating and admirable about Theo Von is the way that he is actually communicating. Let's listen to part of the clip. I'm not going to listen to the whole thing. It's almost an hour long, to the point where Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, says, "All right, I'm gonna have to leave soon," and they wrap it up. But if you just listen to the conversation, it's real, it's funny, and I think that's what people are craving. Being able to vicariously live through a YouTuber or a internet sensation, pretending that you could possibly be that person. If Theo can do it, maybe I could, right? We picture ourselves, some of us at least, in the shoes of that very relatable, real person, vicariously living through them because they're real, they're relatable, they're like me, if you will. And then you have the aspect of the fact that he asks honest questions. This is not a politically correct, let's talk about the basics. This is an honest, real, I was a drug addict. Let's talk about the opioid tragedy and crisis in this country. What are we going to do about criminals coming in through lack of borders? What are we going to do about all the lobbyists and the money games? And, he's asking honest questions that many regular people have. And for a moment, it almost simplifies that messy, blurry clusterfudge that politics is. For a second, it almost makes you feel like one of us is sitting down with the former president going, "What's up? What are we going to do? Help me." And Theo did a very good job constantly coming back to important questions, even when there was a couple of times that Donald Trump was repeating himself or kept saying similar things. Theo did a very good job at going back to important questions, kind of not being swayed, if you will, or distracted by those political responses, but asking it again and again in a different way if need be, asking honest and real conversations, bringing in some humor. It's fascinating. He's really good at this. All right, so let me pass all the comments about when he's touring, even though that's cool too. Okay, so and then also, by the way, guys, he gives this shout out to his civics teacher, Miss Olinger or something like that, and that just is so endearing. I worked as a teacher for a while. If someone that blows up like this, like Theo Von, would shout me out one day, I mean, goodness, that's so special. But it also, again, makes it relatable. We all have a teacher, or most of us, that we remember. So for him to do that, it's like he's honoring people, he's showing his humility, his humanity, but he's also connecting with us.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
He just graduated.
Okay, here, by the way, Donald Trump talks about his son Barron being a fan of Theo Von. Okay, so there's already that connection between, hey, Theo Von is loved by our generation, older generation, the young generation, the next generation. And that all being said by Donald Trump, who was running for presidency, again, I feel like psychologically that creates this feeling of, hey, my son loves you, I love you. There's this connection now between, we have something in common, right? Between various generations. It's not just that this candidate is old news and just for the older people. No, He has a child. His child loves this dude who's interviewing Donald Trump. There's a whole uh, connection here across generations, and I feel like even that may make people think or feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
yeah,
He
Baron.
just graduated high school, right?
That's right. He just did. He knows you very well. He said, "Dad, he's big.
Wow.
Yeah, big one."
That's cool.
So that's good.
What,
Well, that's where it is nowadays, right?
See, there you go. And that's one of the key words. That's where it is nowadays. His own son saying, Dad, Theo's big. Donald Trump agreeing to this. Was it just because his son helped prompt and say, hey, you should do this. This is a great idea. This guy's big, or whatever happened in behind closed doors? No, I have a feeling former President Donald Trump didn't just take this interview because his son likes him. This is big. This is what it is these days. Trump said it himself, because it is. Not only are the billionaires able to sway people because of all the money they put into these pools, it's the views. That's the new currency. When you can get millions of people listening and following, forming opinions, oftentimes not even knowing the facts, but simply because they believe someone, they love someone, they look up to them, they trust them, okay? A lot of people will just follow people and give and donate just because they knew someone who knew someone, or because they trusted, because they start looking up to people. And that can also be dangerous. Of course, that's a blessing, right? If it's not just the billionaires that are able to sway, that have the power because they have money. It's awesome if you can use a platform and any random person from God knows where in their kitchen can have an impact. That's encouraging, because that's what we do. We socially compare ourselves either up or down the ladder. We compare ourselves up, hoping we can be someone. If we are friends with someone or know someone of higher status who's wealthy, we feel like we're more special, or we compare ourselves up and think maybe I can be like that one day. We compare ourselves downward socially, comparing ourselves to the lower, not wanting to associate with certain people groups, or thinking at least we don't have it as bad as them. Or, we look for identity by comparison, by trying to find our place in the world. And that's a whole deeper topic there too, but that's what we do. And so it's cool to think anyone, if they do it right and they have a couple of benefits in their pocket, can create a platform where they can have influence and power. That's exciting to know. I don't have to just be a billionaire to have influence. The dangerous part, of course, also is that many people may just blindly follow whatever they hear because they like a person, because they've built trust, or they think they know. And there's this imbalance of power and this pseudo relationship of thinking, oh, I love this person so much. I look up to this star, this VIP, right? You have people getting angry in the comment section on behalf of their favorite band or artist, even though this artist has no idea who this fan is. And the fan will go die hard after anyone that criticizes their beloved, right? So there's this weird dynamic psychologically, and this imbalance of power, if you will. And so there's also a responsibility on the YouTuber's part, on the person with the platform. There's, verses that say the teacher will be judged twice as hard. But of course, not everybody takes it as serious. Not everyone who has a platform cares about their power and impact. And hopefully people like Theo Vaughn do, and they are wise and cautious about how they teach, what they say, and how they may impact their listeners, and hopefully use it for good. But that's what's so crazy. This is what it is now. And that's why this was such a brilliant move on the Republican side, regardless of if you're pro or con Trump, regardless if you're pro either side or independent. It was smart. It was really, really smart to jump on that train. That is Theo Vaughn, when he is on the what is it? The climax, the peak of his, or maybe even more to come, actually, not even the highest yet, of his career climb, of his impact, the climax of his impact. That's changing in real time, and he's just blowing up. And so to jump on that and to get people to connect with him, for Donald Trump to get people to connect with him through someone as real as Theo Vaughn, who people love and watch and listen and appreciate and trust, that's brilliant. Hate it or love it, that's politically... pretty slick.
Yeah, just evolved out of there.
That's fantastic.
I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. What does Baron play?
Do you want to start?
Started in his
You go
kitchen.
ahead.
Yeah, we're good. Are we rolling?
Yeah, sure.
We're good. Yeah, that's does Baron play sports or anything?
He does. He plays golf and different sports, soccer. Loves soccer. Very good at soccer. He's a good athlete, Baron.
Yeah. Is he gonna go? Has he already picked a college or no?
And this happens a few times. I had a chuckle when former President Donald Trump is like, yeah, he loves this. He's good at it. He's very good at it. Like this is his style of communicating. It's funny. I know many people are annoyed by it, but I've only listened to so many interviews and conversations that include Donald Trump, so it was funny to hear this. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit to talk about his sons. This part was intriguing to me because to compliment Dana White, saying nobody's like him, everyone says everyone's replaceable, but not him. To me, this shows also a little bit of a humility on Trump's side. Again, I'm not saying this to take sides. This is not a pro-Trump video. I'm just trying to analyze psychologically what's happening, but also emphasize how powerful it is, how strategic this interview, but also how powerful to see relatability and what it does to people. At least what it did for me to see, Donald Trump not say he himself is irreplaceable, even though that may be what he thinks, but talking about somebody else like that, emphasizing how everyone's replaceable, but not this friend of his, not Dana White. And then even Theo talking about how he seems to have integrity, how he has his wisdom, right? These are the type of qualities we look for in people. And these guys are talking about these huge celebrities, if you will, these huge characters, Donald Trump, Theo are talking about yet another celebrity, Dana White, in such a way that it makes you feel like you're with them at brunch, at lunch, just having a conversation about, oh yeah, Susie McGee from next door is amazing, and I love the way she braids her hair. You know what I mean? Like, we all have been there, having conversations about somebody else, praising them, either good or bad, comments. And it makes you almost feel like now you get to know Dana White a little bit. It almost makes you feel like you're part of that elite group, right? Theo's doing that. Theo's the one doing that, right? It's not Donald Trump going, hey, I'm one of you, come join me. It's Theo and the way that he is having this conversation and the questions that he's leading and this interview style that's making the viewer and tell me if you disagree. What are your thoughts? How did it make you feel? How did it impact you? But the humor that he brings, the honest questions, it makes me feel like I'm part of this elite group a little bit right now, even though they have no idea who I am yet.
Yeah. I noticed at the events, you don't drink or smoke, right?
I don't drink or smoke. No.
You never have?
No, I never have. I had a great brother who taught me a lesson. Don't drink. And he said, don't smoke. He smoked and he drank, and he was a great guy. He was a very handsome guy.
Is he older? He was older?
Quite a bit older, yeah. And time I'd say no drugs, no drinking, no smoke. And
it was tough.
He'd always tell me, he'd say, never. We have is, fentanyl is probably the biggest. Opioid is bad. Opioid is bad too.
Yeah.
I think that's bad because everyone thinks,
So this part, right around the 18-minute mark, is where they start talking about Theo Von's past with drugs and recovery, the last 10 years and then the last 2 years. And I have to say, even the way that they interact, and again, this is not a political video swing for or against. This is not me taking a side or letting you know how I'm leaning or what I want you to do at all. This is just me analyzing. As much as possible, I'm trying to be objective. From a psychological standpoint, what's endearing is two human beings right now, hate him or love him, having a human conversation about past struggles. Theo being the one. Donald Trump is, emphasizing repeatedly how he's never had a cigarette or a glass of alcohol, which I'll be honest with you is really hard for me to believe. If that's the case, so be it. There are people like that out there. Maybe because they took the warnings of their family members serious, as Trump claims he did. It's hard for me to grasp, not even one drink, not even one cigarette. But hey, alas, there's many different people in the world. Fine. I always assume politicians are lying, but let's just assume it's true. Nonetheless, these are two people having an honest conversation, and the way that Trump is asking him seems very non-judgmental. I mean, he could be judging his pants off in his mind, but he's asking him in a fairly, oh yeah, what did you struggle with? What was your drug? And, have you stopped? Are you okay? Right? It seems very human, and that is endearing. And again, that too is why this conversation is so brilliant for this political race, because it's making it personal. And it's bringing in the people that know what it's like to struggle. And hashtag surprise, most of us know. Most of us know what it's like to have some type of demons to battle. And these questions, you don't control it. Like, it's not, oh, you shouldn't do that. Oh, really? You did that? Oh, you got back on 2 years ago? He's like, how does it work? Like, almost like he's genuinely trying to understand this addiction. And maybe he genuinely is because of his brother. Donald Trump cares about his older brother being an alcoholic and I think passing and stuff. But, it's a very real human conversation. See, even that, boy, that's tough. Like, it almost sounds compassionate. And if that doesn't pull people in psychologically to feel either understood, to not feel judged, right? The humanity of someone who's running for president. It's smart. Theo Von talking about, yeah, when he does do fall for the drugs, it gets bad. He's go-karting, go-kart racing with hookers. Like, he throws at these random little nuggets that had me busting out laughing in the middle of an interview with former president. And then they continue the conversation and it gets more personal about Trump's brother and those things. And that was just, again, just very interesting to see. It's honest and real conversation. And it continues, there's a couple of breaks and they continue. Half of the interview pretty much is very personal conversations about who they know, who they have in common, drug addiction, Trump's brother, Theo Von's journey, right? And then so that last third of the video, it gets more into the political aspect. Theo Von, and you guys can watch it on your own time, but Theo Von asking questions about the lobbyists and the money games and what could be done with the pharmaceuticals. And Trump never gives a hardcore, clear answer about this is what we're going to do. I agree, right? This is a crisis. There's moments where he seems to agree about, yes, opioids are horrible. Fentanyl, etc. He agrees and he addresses that that's a problem. He never, as far as I can recall at least, doesn't give a clear, hardcore statement of this is the problem, this is what we're going to do, and if I'm president, I'm going to handle this when it comes to that pharmaceutical crisis. He does talk about how the lawyer lobbyists group is the biggest one, and why that's a problem and what needs to be done about whoever loses the trial needs to cover the costs, and that would eliminate so many people suing. And so he goes into that a little bit and indicates what he would want to change. And then towards the end speaks about border control and that crisis and the need to keep criminals out, and is very clear about what he plans to do with that. So when it comes to the pharmaceutical problem, about, how that's just a complete huge money game that's costing many people's lives, and Theo Von brings facts and statistics and addresses it. I didn't really pull out, and correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't really pull out a clear answer and action plan, which, as a U.S. citizen, I would have liked to hear, this is what I'm going to do, because that to me is a very big problem, the opioid crisis and healthcare and those things, right? Every average human being, citizen, struggles with that, if not with drugs, at least with the need for healthcare, et cetera. So you have these questions, and again, some questions are answered fairly political by former President Donald Trump. Some of them he just kind of gives a general answer or goes away a little bit from the question, as politicians often do, right? It's a lot of hullabalooga, as what Theo Von would say. And then other questions he answers fairly directly in regards to the borders, in regards to the lawyer lobby, what it's not called. So it's an interesting conversation, semi-political, but a lot of human connection. This is who I know. Oh, you know this person too. Oh, yeah, I go to the Thanksgiving dinner. Man, I should go too. A lot of talk about what they have in common, drug addiction in the family or in himself, as Theo expressed. So it's more personal than it is political. And it segued beautifully. There was a nice transition, which is helpful for a conversation. You ease your way into the nitty gritty and then the questions we all have for this presidential candidate. But it still showed a side of former President Donald Trump, presidential candidate Donald Trump. It shows a side of him that is more human. For those who maybe have not seen that as much, for those who look at all of it just through the political lens, right? It makes him a little more approachable, right? When we start talking about our family members and about our memories and about who we know, and when we talk about how we feel about certain matters or why we think there's a problem, or even just slightly agreeing, if not even if he wasn't being clear about his game plan with the opioid crisis in America, the fact that he said, man, yes, opioids, fentanyl is huge and that's just crazy, right? The fact that even there's some acknowledgement, I can see people holding on to that and going, oh yes, he sees it as a problem, and yes, he cares, right? We look for a leader, if not consciously, maybe at least subconsciously, we look for a leader to give some type of safety, some type of connection, some type of, hey, you see me, I matter, okay? That's why I believe sometimes these speeches by Kamala Harris, as silly as sometimes they may seem or are made fun of with the whole, let's unburden what has been burdened of the burden behind the burden of existing in the present moment of now. Beyond that, there's snippets of her speeches even where she speaks of, we have a right for freedom, the government shouldn't control us, and we, are out here, the average middle-class American are struggling, right? Those type of words are intentional. They're psychologically strategic to get people to go, yes, that's my problem. You see me, that's my need, right? So it either addresses a need and promises to meet a need, or it creates a need, a believed need, a perceived need, making us think there's a need for something. making us think a person can offer a need that they now created or put there in front of us. So it could be both angles. But you see those kinds of comments and that relatability and that humanity in those snippets where I see why people latch on either side going, oh, yes, and this is why this person needs to be whatever in charge. Sometimes we forget it's really not just one person, it's a whole system or supposed to be. But I digress. That's what's interesting about this. It shows a human side. It almost allows you to feel like you're there sitting with presidential candidate Donald Trump, getting to ask him questions. And that's what's so brilliant about Theo Von. And one of the reasons why I think he's blowing up the way he is, because he is your everyday guy. Again, he comes across like that neighbor from next door who you would have a beer with at a barbecue and just chilling and laughing and cracking out loud at a fire pit. He makes you feel like you could be his friend. Like you could run into him and he would just make you laugh and hand you a beer. Super chill. And it makes it feel like you're there with him. It makes you feel like you're part of the elite. But again, still being very intelligent, still showing us this is not just some dumb dude somewhere, hillbilly country boy that has no clue. This guy's smart. And he's asking good questions. He keeps redirecting and not afraid to kind of gently, respectfully come back around to a certain question he didn't quite get an answer to yet. And he's just... what is that word? Not pop culture per se, but contemporarily huge right now. And he's going to continue to blow up. Like he's going to be huge. He has all these big people on his channel and it's diverse. That's what's so intriguing about him as well. It's really not just one side or the other. Just because he has Trump on his channel doesn't now mean to me that, it's just a bunch of Republican hullabalooga. That's another reason why this was kind of smart. I'm not saying it was strategic by Theo. Of course it was, I'm sure, a huge honor for him to have big candidates like Trump or Bernie Sanders and all these other dudes. It's good for Theo's brand and for his business and whatnot. But of course, it was strategic on the Republican side to sit down with someone so relevant right now to the culture, with someone who is going to come across people's screens. It's going to pop up on people's algorithm. Again, a few days and almost 12 million views. People are seeing this going, ooh, I like this guy. Or if they don't even know Theo Von, oh, I like Trump or I hate Trump. What is this, right? Whatever causes you to click on that thumbnail, it'll pull you in. And now you have this regular funny dude who's making you laugh, making you feel like you're hanging out with him. Got the can of drink, could be some marketing right there happening right now. Maybe that's the company that is part of the sponsorship and, having their cans in the background is how they get paid. Whatever the case, it still feels relaxed. It still feels like, of course, it's in a fancy room. It has to be. They're meeting with former president, but it's natural. They got their mic stand as if, one of us just came and set up our mic and here we go. Now we're talking to a presidential candidate. Like what? Right? It's real. And that's what people are craving. I think social media is allowing people to go from we're physically meeting to we're seeing things in the news. We're reading it in newspapers. We're seeing it in black and white and now in color on the TV to now going, we're hanging out. Like, even though it's kind of an illusion, it's virtual, we're not really physically together, we're hanging out, separated by camera, but we're hanging out. You're in here with me in my studio, and we're chatting about this and laughing about this. The internet and YouTube reaction videos, podcasts, conversations are allowing people to really get that connection that they crave, that they lost maybe during the pandemic, or that they just lost through the era of social media where everything became much more about the virtual world. People are living in this. And it can be dangerous and it can be entertaining. And it was very interesting to see how he handled a lot of this. So all that to say is that I have a lot of respect for Theo. It would be an honor to meet him one day. Yeah, this is me throwing that out there because maybe this video will come across and he'll be like, oh, this chick seems cool, right? You never know. But I genuinely think this guy is solid and I admire him for his authenticity. I think that's why people are gravitating towards him, also honest about his struggles, people coming out of the woodwork saying me too. And yeah, I think this is awesome. Very, very interesting. And even just to see how he's reflecting on it and how he's remembering and how he's being honest about how he was nervous. Yeah. Theo is awesome. Regardless of what you think about former President Donald Trump or the fact that he interviews all these different guys, he has people from all across the board, and I appreciate that. He doesn't seem to be just polarizing to one type of guest or the other. And he's not afraid to ask funny, honest questions. This guy is just, he's going to keep blowing up. What do you think? What do you think is behind something like this happening? What do you think it does for the presidential race? What do you think it does for the people when they see this, regardless if they're Theo Van fans or not? And what do you think is behind utilizing YouTubers, podcasts, interviews on YouTube like this? that I feel like it's never been done before. I feel like this is brand new, pioneering the what is it? The campaigns. I feel like this is campaign pioneering at its finest, utilizing YouTubers and podcasts, and starting with someone like Theo Vaughn is pretty smart. Subscribe if you're new here. We're all about world music, psychology. Once in a while, I'll look at things that are not necessarily music related to analyze that a bit and talk, because it's hot topics and it's interesting. So subscribe, and I'll see you on the next ride. Ayo!